Coming up, it's Fan Take Friday, where we take a look at trade packages that the Brooklyn Nets faithful want to see get done by Sean Marks, plus the Boston Celtics on Friday night and a difficult 6-game stretch ahead. We dive in, coming up next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, my friends, it is the Locked On Nets podcast, right here in the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. He's Doug Norrie. I'm Adam Armbrecht. We thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day. We are 100% free on all those great platforms. And let you know, this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the app today and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA to win $50 instantly when you place your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Speaking of running your game, Doug, Brooklyn Nets been running their game to the tune of a 4-4 record. And now we'll get into Friday night, Boston Celtics. We'll see how this all goes. But certainly, when I posted up to the fan base, give me your expectations for the 6 games. Give me your trade ideas. They went right past expectations and straight into trade packages that they want to see for this team.
Yeah, look, I mean, I get it, right? This is the state of the Nets right now. It's the state of the Nets is this team in flux. They want to, people want to see something happen. People do not want to see these guys still on the team. It's actually hilarious. It's we're in a world, and I'm with this too. We're huge proponents of this, so this is not there's no shade here. We're in this weird place of fandom where it's like the games are secondary to some degree, and the ideas around future assets are primary. But those future that future stuff is so in the future that it's hard to see what it is. But then when it doesn't, when something immediate doesn't come, it gets frustrating, and the Nets are on 9 months of this or whatever, where like we've been saying, maybe they should trade and get some of these guys off the roster and get future assets for guys who it's going to take like years to get them on the team. It's just a very funny way to sort of engage with fandom. Thankfully, the individual games themselves are still very interesting, like at 4-4. And that's been like sort of a blessing, I think, or not even a sort of a blessing. But it is funny to think about, when it's like, hey, what's this next 6-game stretch look like? And it's like, get DFS off the team, right? Like, we want a second rounder.
You. Whatever it takes.
Or people just coming out, it's like, you forgot the Grizzlies and the Kings when you mentioned that Cam Johnson or the Timberwolves and the Kings. You forgot that. I'm like, okay, well, I get it, but we're serving two different kind of ideas here with the Nets. So I'm not surprised that people want to see the trade packages. I would not expect that anytime soon. Like, this is not trade season. This is just not when teams make trades. It's just not how it works. It's just the dead period when that stuff comes along in January. And by the way, we'll talk about it, but it's just a very funny place the Nets find themselves in, specifically the fans, which, by the way, is all that matters.
Like I was going to say, by the way, Doug, let's serve our master here, which is the fan base and what they want in this moment. And that is, by the way, some people came out on this one over on X. Hassan, frequent flyer. I mean, this guy has been with us, I think, maybe since the very beginning. He says, how about this, though? We talked about the Milwaukee Bucks before. They could panic and make a move. They could panic, Doug. That's very true. How about just a nice 2031 top 5 protected first-round pick and the salary match of our old friend Brook Lopez for one Dorian Finney-Smith? Is it the reality here for Hassan just accepting that I think the Dorian Finney-Smith for first-round value, no, that's no longer a part of this.
We have to get rid of that completely.
Yeah.
That's not happening. It's like it
was kind of have a conversation.
Yeah, second-round picks. He's just not bringing a first-round value. Honestly, even if you thought he was worth first-round value as a player, which I do not think he is, but let's just say even if you thought he was as a Nets fan, or like there was an internal dialogue among GMs where their analytics team was like, you know what, this guy is like a first round pick. The optics would still be so terrible that you wouldn't do it, right? Like from the other team, like the other team would just have such a hard time even explaining to their fan base, like where fans have really gotten smart about this. And thankfully Nets fans are like this too, is like the value of these picks is high. Like these first round picks is you can't just go willy-nilly. Now you can go a lot on guys who are like really well-established players, like, the Mikal Bridges types and up, right? On getting first-round picks for guys like this. They have to be like well-established NBA players who can take like lead sort of ish roles on playoff teams, like that's who's going to get first round picks. No, other guys are not getting you're not getting first round picks for other guys that are not like that. I don't think in this landscape, right? I just don't. And so DFS is one of those guys. Like he's a dude. He's good. He's fine. He will help a team for sure. But you have to have a certain skill set to even start thinking about first round value. And I just don't think he has that. And so I think it's just not going to, I think we need to erase that. But besides the part where I don't think the Bucks would do that anyway.
No, yeah, talk about value. That's one thing actually is good to remind everybody in the long term of this. You said it right there. Like if you are a contending team, not just a team that wants to go margin moving, maybe from edge, fringe of playoffs into playoffs contention, is the moves you make, regardless of what it costs and the price point, need to be moves where when those players come either one of two things. It is a guy that's coming off the bench solely because you're already so deep and it just elevates what you're getting there and has a certain value in terms of the skill set, 3-point shooting, whatever it may be. Or it comes in and clearly takes your starting lineup from a C+ to a B-, from a B- to a B+, whatever it is, right? Like there needs to be a clear understanding that player X walks in the door and instantly our lineup takes a dramatic leap. Not, if we go get Dorian Finney-Smith, maybe in the minutes he plays off the bench for us, it kind of helps us a little bit. No team is going to, first of all, be doing first-round picks for that, as we say, but also no team is going to look there and give away assets for a possibility of improvement when it comes to contending teams, even if we don't think Milwaukee right now is one of those guys.
And they beat Utah the other night. And, we're going to watch Milwaukee all year, but but it's just not going to be this kind of situation for them. And so I just think that just tempering expectations around these trades, seeing what the landscape looks like, let's say come January, it's already shaking out a little bit weird. Like we talked about on the podcast the other day, it's just a little hard to see exactly where all these teams are going. And I'm going to tell you too, what also happens, and we're hoping this doesn't happen with the Nets, what also happens is just injuries play huge parts in what ends up happening with some of these teams. There's just going to be teams that have guys injured, that have key guys, role player even type guys that get injured that they just can't. It's very difficult to replace within their own team. It's hard to see exactly who those guys are now. And so it's hard to sort of shake out. It's hard to shake it out like right now, which is why the number of teams that would probably be interested is on the lower side. I don't actually think that will be totally the case come January, February, but I do think there'll be a team that we're not talking about now. Yes. That is in that because they're just in a different situation. That's just how it goes. It's wash, rinse, repeat. It happens every single season in the NBA.
Let's talk about a couple other possibilities here, including one riled up fan who is disgusted by the mention of D'Angelo Russell's name in any trade package coming back to Brooklyn. We'll do that and also look ahead to the next 6 games for the Nets on the schedule coming up here in just one moment.
All right, before we get to that, tell you about our friends over at PrizePicks. Look, PrizePicks made daily fantasy so easy. You can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. It's the only real money daily fantasy platform with injury insurance too. So your lineups are going to stay safe even if someone gets injured. All you're doing on PrizePicks is you're going more or less on the PrizePicks projections. Like for NBA, that's points, assists, rebounds, blocks, steals. NFL, touchdown, passing yards, rushing, all the stats you love, all the stats you stare about every single day, every single week. That's all you're doing on PrizePicks. You're going into the players. You're going more or less on those projections. You can combine different sports together. You can win up to 100 times your money. You can also sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers those weekly promotions. They lead to big payouts. It's got Taco Tuesday. Okay, yum. I can get them on board with that. PrizePicks has just really, really drilled this down and made it so simple. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. And when you're done with that, head on over to our friends over on FanDuel. Look, NFL action in full swing here, and to mix metaphors. NBA action, has kicked off correctly. It's mixed another metaphor. It's just that's how you're getting going over on FanDuel. It's got it all there for you. It's got the money lines. It's got the odds. It's got more player props. Start right now. I'm a challenge. Start right now. Start going through all the player props for NBA games and NFL Sunday. You won't make it. You're just simply too many to go through when it comes to FanDuel. You also get the real in-game live betting too. It's all in one place. You can see the scores. You can check the box scores, check the latest stats, view the play-by-play. It's all there for you on FanDuel.com. Plus, you're going to get $5 back in, excuse me, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets with the $5 bet that wins. That's all you have to do to get started. $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet over on FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook.
All right, so as we continue today's Locked On Nets episode, talking about Fan Take Friday, we want to do this all year long if we could. Also have to get into our picks for the Boston Celtics game. I don't know any other way to sugarcoat this. 5-3, yours truly, even though I started out a little bit hotter. Doug trying to bring up the rear 2-6 on the season, so we'll see where we go when it comes to the spread on the Boston Celtics game. There was another good one here that came in. It was just very simple. Some people go long-winded. Jonathan, frequent flyer on YouTube as well. He gave us about 7 paragraphs. Always love it. Does it on YouTube as well. We appreciate the detailed responses. Or you keep it simple and to the point. Cam Johnson for Kuminga. Go ahead, Doug. Cam Johnson for Kuminga. That's it. Nothing else to discuss. Easy deal.
Well, it's so weird because Kuminga is in such a weird spot. It's like the Warriors have started off awesome. He doesn't start anymore. And so it's sort of like proof positive on that he doesn't get the extension. They move him to the bench, and then the team's
turns out we're kind of better without you.
Then Curry gets hurt. He still doesn't start, and they're still awesome. And so now he's kind of like, well, I don't know how they view him. And it's the Kuminga thing is actually kind of in some ways not too dissimilar from the Cam Thomas thing. Is that it's been a little confusing how the Warriors view him, right? Because there's been times where he just absolutely jumps off the screen, super athletic, twitchy, and seems like he can do a lot. Also kind of doesn't fit the Steph system that they run. Doesn't kind of get in, doesn't really kind of run this, doesn't kind of get off on running the same actions that they run within their that Steve Kerr offense. And they just haven't made this commitment either. So it's just a weird, I would do that just on the upside because I just think that's where the Nets are. I don't think the Warriors would, because I think they would probably view it as probably not getting enough back. And I think if he were to hit the trade market, other teams would just try to, try to value some of the upside. I just do think this is a weird situation though, because he's definitely been at odds with the coaching staff in the front office before, has come out publicly. They've talked about trades. He's also just not shooting the ball well this year. I mean, all the stats are way down, 44% from the field, 28% from 3, 66 from the line. I mean, across the board, it looks bad. Anyway, long way to say that the Nets should do a move like that. I'm not sure the Warriors do a move like that. And I have no idea how the Warriors feel about Kuminga. So it's just a very, very weird situation.
Well, because it's funny too, because you mentioned that it doesn't fit with Steph Curry, and then let's say that he and the organization Kuminga are back on the same page, even though it doesn't optically look like they are. But over the next couple of seasons, you're also, if you're the Warriors, probably thinking about, well, there will come a time when we're in the post-Curry era of the Golden State Warriors, and we have good players, and we believe in our ability to draft and build back up, all those things. But you don't want to give away a guy for nothing. Now, the other problem here is the first one that we get to say it in terms of trade ideas. You're only talking about $7.6 million on Kuminga this season, 23.6 on Cam Johnson. So you're still another almost $16 million away if you're the Warriors.
Always the problem.
This deal happen. And then
always the problem with
Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson, money. Teams that already have a lot of dollars occupied in their roster don't just get to give one-to-one trades. Now you have to start dumping in more players, even though this was as a trade idea, not including any assets at all. It was just player per player. So you still have to find another way to get there on the Warriors roster, who, when you get down into that area, DeAnthony Melton making 13. You've got $9 million in Gary Payton, Buddy Hield making 8.7 in Kyle Anderson. You could probably get there with a couple other guys, but
they're not doing Hield. They're not doing Hield at all.
I'm just putting out the names that are in the money spot. You can get there on a couple other guys, but the bottom line is the more guys you throw in to make the money match is the harder it is to just say, just for Cam. Maybe you send us something, Brooklyn Nets. Yeah, Cam Johnson has value for us, but we're giving you 2 or 3 players back in return, potentially. Yeah,
this is where, again, I mean, how many times have we talked about this? The people that are longtime listeners of the podcast are going to know that this has been a repeatable thing for us for a long time, is that it always comes down to that last part. It's like, hey, would you do it? Yeah, sure. Turns out there's this other little thing in the NBA that sometimes matters with these trades, and it's called the contracts. And when, other sports, don't necessarily have this, where you have to match all the salaries and whatever, and it makes trade facilitation sometimes a little easier, right? Sometimes a little harder. It's like you have to try to value what the money in, what the money out is, how much teams are going to pay on the contract. The NBA doesn't have that piece, right? We see that in baseball all the time. It's like, they're trading this guy. They're going to pay $199 million of his 200 million left. And it's like,
right.
So it's like, okay, well,
Fantastic.
you're trying to, it's the calculus is significantly harder to do around that. The NBA makes it a little cleaner in that, like, only these guys can be traded for only these guys, right? Like, that's basically what it is, right? There's a calculator that just tells you who can be traded for who. So in some ways it's easier because you know exactly what can be done when it comes to trades,
sure.
as opposed to anything like in some of these other sports. Also, there's a limiting factor where it's like, we just simply can't get it done, right? We just can't get these trades done. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm a little concerned that this is like the talking point going all the way forward with this, just like that we're just not able to line these guys up, like line up the contracts and line up the deck chairs. But it's such a reality for the situation. So I want them to get traded, but I just don't. I mean, what do you think? I mean, it's just too hard to make it work. How many hours have you spent in the trade machine trying to figure out trades for these guys? It just doesn't. It's so hard.
The way that it becomes really easy is when you start to get into, like, now here's a 6-team trade where you start massaging numbers.
That's the other one, but then you're
world,
like,
right?
That's just not realistic. That's just not
exactly.
realistic. And so, like, and I do the same thing too, because like, there's some guy sent me a screenshot the other day. He needed a magnifying glass to read like how many teams you put in this thing. It was on the screen. It was too much. It was like simply too many things. It's like, don't do those trades either, because those just don't happen really either.
And the reality too is, as you mentioned, like there'll be teams. There'll be teams we don't think about, teams that are going to come up here. It's going to look different when you get to the deadline, and the way that the Nets think about things will be different too. So something always comes up. I think that is a reality that we always live in every single season. And also, it is incredibly hard to do it. And when you start to get into the third and the fourth team trade scenarios, you know that you're getting too far afield, and it's really difficult to make those numbers work. When they come up and they start to get rumored and reported, great. Then you can dive a layer deeper on them. But right now, of course, it's hard to look at these and think anything other than, yeah, we'll wait and see. And that includes, by the way, before we turn our attention over to Boston Celtics and the 6-game run that I want to get into, which could be very telling, maybe a good gauge here about how competitive the Nets can be over the course of this entire season. Jonathan, as I mentioned, I'm going to say Jonathan O. You have a very impressive and probably hard to say last name. Dennis Schroeder going to the Lakers to get back Gabe Vincent and Jalen Hood-Schifino and and a second-round draft pick. Or maybe you send Schroeder out to Philly for Caleb Martin, KJ Martin, and 2 second-round draft picks. He also has ideas about the Pacers, Dorian Finney-Smith, taking a look at sending him out there with Day'Ron Sharpe for Obi Toppin, Jarris Walker, and a protected first-round draft pick. Like, and I'm not even throwing shade at Jonathan. It's almost just summarizing what we just discussed here. Yeah, there's possibilities. And there was also Clash Bandicoot, who's a frequent flyer, said, why is everyone obsessed with getting back D'Angelo Russell from the Lakers in trades like these? All these things get thrown around. The one thing I'll remind the fan base of, there's sometimes young players that you're interested in. I did this last year at the deadline. Hey, young guy worth taking a flyer on. Jalen Hood-Schifino was one of them because I liked him in the draft. But the other side of it is, for the Brooklyn Nets, when it comes to these trades, for me at least, it's always money matching first, player, talent, fit, value second. That is all secondary for the Brooklyn Nets this season when it comes to trading some of these veterans, as opposed to years past. This isn't Kevin Durant wants out. We need to get back players that we believe we can plug in and play competitive minutes for us. This is much more going to be, can we get as many draft picks as possible going forward? Can we maybe get a young player that hasn't proven himself at the NBA level yet? And can we just make sure that the numbers match? So I think that's a different scenario here too. Like when you go back to that Kuminga trade. Yeah, you'd love to have Kuminga because he has talent and maybe that turns around. I don't know if that's the way the Brooklyn Nets are looking at these opportunities, as opposed to just trying to move money, just trying to get off the books here and prepare ourselves for next season when we're going to be very young, a lot of draft picks, and all the things we've talked about before.
Yeah, I mean, okay, well, actually, the final point, then we'll get into this Celtics game, is that, like, remember, too, they have, like, so many draft picks. They're going to have to clear roster space anyway. They have four first-round picks? I can't.
Potentially
have, like,
four, yeah.
Yeah, potentially 4 first-round picks. Well, those guys are going to, like, have some form on the roster, right? Especially if they're a couple high picks. Like, these are going to be, turnkey kind of NBA guys. So they're going to have to do roster clearing no matter what, even in the best situation. So that's like, they don't get too married to some of the guys that are on this team right now. All right, we got more to talk about here when it comes to the Celtics. Make some predictions about what this game and what this next stretch of games is going to look like. We'll talk about that here in a second. All right, before that, Tell you about our friends over at Skims. Look, I wear underwear every day. You wear underwear every day. Maybe some of us haven't switched up the type of underwear we bought since college even. I mean, sometimes you just kind of set it and forget it, right? You're used to the kind you like, and that's just what you do. But you got to find a new way here. For those who haven't heard yet, Skims now offers men's underwear. I'm here to tell you, it is worth the hype. Look, sometimes you like that square cut 3-inch boxer brief. I know I do. I don't like it when they just kind of ride up. It can get a little bit uncomfortable. You're playing with the kids. You're always constantly moving around. You're at the gym. You're always on the move. Luckily, Skims found a way to create the perfect 3-inch stretch boxer brief. Gives you all the movement you need throughout the day. Perfect comfort for those long trips on the road. Or like I said, all that movement you're doing throughout the day. All the 3-inch boxer briefs have officially been put on notice. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com. Let them know we sent you. After you place your order, what you're going to do, after you place that order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. And if you're looking for the perfect gift for the whole family, Skims just launched their biggest holiday shop ever, also available at skims.com.
All right. As we tie a bow on today's Locked On Nets episode, Fan Take Friday, we like to do it all year. Continue to come back at us over on X when we throw these things out, but also try to go with the two-parter here because I wanted the second leg of this thing to be joined into by the fan base. Expectations against Boston, expectations for these next 6 games for the Brooklyn Nets, because we talked about this earlier in the week where not only Friday night against Boston, they are a team that has met their expectations coming into the year and coming off of their championship run last season. But the Nets will go to Boston, then to Cleveland. They'll go to the Pelicans, and then they come home for Boston before playing 2 games at Madison Square Garden against the New York Knicks. I'll go first here. I hate when I always pose the question to you when we lead out of breaks. I think obviously this is going to be very telling about how truly competitive can the Nets be. We've seen them play against some of the best teams in the league. Some of them have not performed well to start the season. But now you get into a stretch where I think the cumulative effect of playing a lot of these good teams over the course of 12 days can let you know a little bit about where this team stands. They're still dealing with some injuries. You're still not getting Simmons on back-to-backs. You're still getting some level of Nicholas Claxton injury management as he returns too. I can just see this being a regression to the mean for the Brooklyn Nets in terms of season expectations over these next 6 games. 1-5, 2-6, and I'm not even saying I'll come out of that feeling bad about the team. Just a reality of playing a lot of good rosters, specifically the Cleveland and Boston games.
Yeah, like I think we have to. You got to put those down as losses. I think if they get a win out of this group, out of this stretch, I think you're feeling like that's probably realistic. 2 wins, I think if you're rooting for the non-tank group, you're jumping for joy. Just be based on expectations. Like these are good. This is a hard stretch. These are good teams, and Boston and Cleveland alone. I mean, Cleveland, they're undefeated. Like they are just absolutely just train wrecking people this season. And
yeah,
old friend Kenny Atkinson's got that team just playing out of their minds. And so I just
and that's what the right coach can do for a team, right? It's we talked about this bit with the Nets, but like sometimes right coach and fit with players, all of a sudden it does bring things together the way you want them out there in Cleveland with Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, like got Mobley shooting more. Garland's had some pop-off games, which he wasn't really always having with Mitchell in the mix there. It's like a little bit more, not like spread out, but just like a little more fluid of an offense. It turns out when you just have like these good players and they all just kind of get to eat, then the team just boat races people. So when it comes to like the stretch, I think like 2 wins is asking a lot, maybe 1 during this thing. I mean, what do we think for the Boston game? We want to roll through some, I mean, they're plus 13.5. Now the good news for the Nets, 6-2 against the spread this season. That's a 4th best in the league against the spread. Cavs, Warriors, Raptors 7-2 somehow against the spread. And then the Nets are 6-2. But that 13.5, that's a lot. Boston also kind of destroys teams. So it's in Boston. What do we think here?
Yeah, I like how the chuckle after they kind of destroy teams. I mean, because it's in Boston, I'll actually be curious when they're at home against Boston. I'll be curious about the spread there because the Nets have played really well at the Barclays Center. I think fans have shown up really well for them in their own building. But on the road, 13.5, it's really hard because the Nets have not shown you this season at any point that they are going to get blown out by teams. And also, Boston blows out almost every team they play. Now, they just lost to the Warriors their last game, 118-112, but they beat Atlanta by 30. They took care of Charlotte going away. That one closed the gap a little bit towards the back end. 124-109 in the first game against Charlotte. There's just a lot of these on their resume. Now, they lost in overtime to the Pacers. And I think that's kind of the weird part is pedigree of Golden State tells you, oh, like, it's not surprising when you see the box score. Golden State Warriors beat Boston. It's surprising this year right now. And then the Pacers one is surprising too. I don't think they're on the same level as the Boston Celtics either. God, I hate to do it because I like believing in this team, but I would lay the points here on the road game. Come back, give me the exact same spread at home, and I might go the other way. But that would be my take here. I just think there's a lot of really difficult defensive assignments here for the Brooklyn Nets. Although this will just be fun. I'm not flip flopping here. I'm Boston laying the points, but it will be fun to watch the length and versatility, Zaire Williams, and how Jordi Fernandez tries to use the length defensively to create some problems for Boston. And maybe what we come in next week saying is, hey, while they lost the game, you saw nice stretches where they actually were able to be disruptive against some of the best teams in the league, some of the best players in the league.
Yeah, I'll take the 13.5 here for the Nets. I think that they fight hard. Yeah. You have enough guys coming in off the bench that still have prove it kind of guys. And I just think that these guys, I don't think they're going to win, but I think where they can stay competitive because they're just other teams are clearly taking them a little too easy. Right. Yeah. And they've got something to prove here. There seems to be a sense that no one likes the idea. Yeah, the team was tanking, but good luck telling some of these veterans to go off and roll over. Right. And that's clearly not happening too. So I think I don't think it's just luck that they're, the 6-2 against the spread again, does against the spread win you championships? No, obviously. But it does tell you a little bit about if you're outperforming expectation. And so that, and I hate to break it to you, but the books kind of have it right with this. It's 50% down the middle for the entire history of this stuff around point spreads and stuff. And that is the baseline expectation. And they're overperforming on it. And it's not just some random coincidence. It's for the reasons we've seen. These guys are just playing really, really hard every night. And either teams are taking them a little too easily or the Nets are reveling in the idea that everyone thought they were going to lose all these games and they're just clearly not. I think that actually does mean something here.
And then, of course, Jaylen Brown will not play against the Nets tonight either. So you do have that going for you with his hip. So there are some things that factor into this as well, obviously. The other thing that I'd watch for, and I agree with you, our teams are the Boston Celtics, one of the first teams that are aware of what the Nets have done early on and say we need to be ready for this. They had a day off. Nets had 33 days off before this game. The backcourt matchup to me is interesting too, just with, Drew Holiday, Derek White, Schroeder, Cam Thomas. How do those matchups work offensively? Do they put Drew Holiday? They have him kind of switching defensively on those two assignments, depending on who's hotter. If you take away one of those players, and we talked about this before, well, if the Nets trade away Dennis Schroeder, it really starts to break things down. Well, what if in a game like this, he gets taken away by the other team defensively? Then you start to look to others to be able to create and set the table for this roster. So that's where I think this game can get a little bit crazy, a little bit quick. But the good news is, Doug and I go on opposite sides of the ledger here. So we'll see who comes out on top on this one. And then for the 6-game stretch, we want to put this, let's just real quick, put pen to paper. 6-game stretch, you have them going, what, 1-5?
Yeah, 1-5.
I think
0-6. 0-6 is on the table.
I'm taking a loss here, so I got to go 2-4 probably if I'm taking a loss opening the gate with Boston.
All right. Well, there you go. That's high hopes. That's what the Nets have. Okay, we're gonna get out of here. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Nets over on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Nets newsletter. It's coming out 5 days a week from Adam, breaking down what's going on in Nets world every single day. So much to get into. Just check the show notes for the links to all that stuff.
Oh, I hate using anonymous, especially on a Friday. But courage is knowing it might hurt and doing it anyway. Stupidity is the same, and that's why life is hard.
Oh, one of the all-time great poets. We're back again Monday talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.